You can tell it's Sunday by my hair. Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave, where we like to play with art stuff. We are following on from a previous video today that had a very good response, and that is a little bit more drawing for colourists. If you're new to drawing and this is something that you're interested in, I do suggest that you go back and watch the original video, because there's a few techniques in there that I show you at the start that you're going to need to follow this tutorial. So I'll pop it into the card for you just now, and I'll leave the link in the description as well if you want to check that out first. So yeah, the last video got quite a good response, so I thought we would carry on with our creepy-crawlies, and I just want to show you a few more today that you can add into your colouring pages to make them that little bit more personal and a little bit more interesting. So we'll head to top-down view and we can get going. Okay, so here we are again. I'm really excited about this video. I really enjoy doing these. The tools that you will need is some sketching paper. It can be printer paper, it really doesn't matter because this is where we practice. You will also need some sort of pencil. This is just a cheap mechanical pencil. Just a normal HB pencil is absolutely fine. You don't need anything fancy. Some sort of fine liner which you're going to ink your little drawing with. I favour the Pigma Microns. Anything will do, but ideally you want something that you will be able to match the line width in your colouring book, which I'll explain a little bit more about when we get to that stage. And the last thing you need is an eraser. Again, it's just down to preference. You can use a normal, I like these sort of plastic or rubber erasers because they seem to lift graphite quite well, but my personal preference is a kneaded eraser, which you can pick up for not very many pennies, and you can get them just about everywhere where you can buy stuff like that. So this is what we need to do. Now, assuming that you have watched the first video, there are a few shapes that we have been needing to practice, and we're going to use exactly the same shapes today. So just a quick recap on that. The first one is a circle. The second one is an oval shape. Now, when we practice our oval shapes, we need to be able to do really long and skinny ovals, so like really squashed ones like this. And we also need to be able to do ones that are very similar to a normal circle. The other shape is a teardrop shape. And there's two ways of doing that. You can either draw your point for your teardrop first, like this, a little V shape, and then you can pop an oval on top of it and then just join them up like this. Or you can do the opposite and you can get the shape of your oval first. So say you wanted a kind of longer, skinnier one, maybe something like this. And then you can just refine that a little bit, and then you can draw in the edge of your teardrop shape, and then you can erase away the outside edges like this to get that teardrop shape again, and then you can just sort of tidy it up as and where you need to. So those are the basic shapes. I would suggest you practice them if you haven't already, and if you're not comfortable or confident, please do go back and watch the first video where I go over it in a little bit more detail. Right, so last time we talked about some butterflies and dragonflies because they followed a similar shape, and we also looked at beetles and ladybirds as well. So what we're going to do today is just carry on, as I said, with that sort of creepy-crawly type theme, and the first thing we're going to look at is our friend the spider. Now, one of the most fun things to do in a colouring book is to have a spider hanging down from somewhere, you know, some sort of foliage, which always looks great. And here in World of Flowers, this was the page that I used to demonstrate last time, and you can see I have a little spidery friend here, and he's quite a friendly little chap, and we're going to have a look at how to do that sort of thing just now. Pop this out the way for the moment. I have to apologise for how dark this is. The sky looks as if it's about to open up and rain down on us, and it's just getting darker and darker and darker. When we're thinking about spiders, let's go with that idea of them hanging down from somewhere. We'll get zoomed in a little bit. So the first thing that you need to think about is the shape of your spider. Now, if you want a friendly, more sort of cartoony spider, they tend to be quite fat. And I think that's just one of the things that makes them jolly. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the different body shapes you can use for them. So the sort of simplest way to do one is to do some sort of oval. And that's basically, you know, that's as straightforward as it gets. So you've got your little string or web hanging down, and this is his body or her body. Let's not be sexist about it. The other body shapes that you can use is you can turn your oval the other way, so more like this kind of size and this orientation. So we'll do one down here so you can have it this way. Now obviously when you're drawing these ovals, you want them to be roughly half as wide as they are tall, because if you have a long skinny one, that's not very spider shaped. They do have to have some sort of roundness to them, and the 2:1 ratio is a great rule, and it doesn't have to be exact. So basically whatever your distance is across the middle here, you want that to be roughly half of it top to bottom. I hope that sounds a bit more sensible. But again, it's one of those things where if you think that's too long, you can always erase it, or you can just draw another one, because we're just practicing just now. So maybe something around that sort of size or shape. So I'm going to stick to my original one because I'm going to amend it as we go to show you what to do if you decide it's not the right shape. So there you go. The other thing that you can do, you can have what I would say, this goes for a more sort of cartoony style, and it's just 2 ovals. So you want the first one to look a little bit like this. So again, it's back to what we were doing before. You can keep going round and round with a really light hand until you get the sort of shape that you're looking for. And when you're happy with what you see, you can erase away all those sort of less accurate lines that aren't following what you want, and it just gives you a bit of a cleaner sketch shape to work with when it comes to inking. And then we want a second oval that's just going to sit on the top, and that's going to be like a head. Now you can do this and you can practice it as many times as you want, as many times as it takes, and this is the joy about drawing, and it's why that I like to encourage people to try, because you can do really simple things and there's no such thing as a mistake that can't be fixed in pencil because you've got your eraser. Paper is a really easy commodity to get hold of, so there's no reason for you not to be able to practice. You can have a spider like this. I prefer to use this 2 oval approach when the spider is sitting on something rather than hanging down, but that's just me. And the last one is a bit more of a realistic approach. So what you want to do there is have a circle, because this is going to be his head. You want to put an oval behind him, but what we're going to do is we're going to use it more as a teardrop shape. So what I tend to do with that is draw the teardrop shape in first. So if you imagine the V starting in here, like in where his head is. Okay, so if you imagine the V starting behind the head, and you can draw it in on the head shape if you want, and then bring it up and round, and then you've got your rounded part at the top. So it's going to kind of taper in either side here, and then it gradually goes into your oval shape. So that's going to give you a bit more of a realistic body shape. And again, you can have your little stringy bit hanging down. So with all of these examples, that's just ovals and one teardrop. Ovals and teardrop. Really, really straightforward. Nothing complicated about this at all. Come on, camera, focus. There we go. So when we're thinking about legs, think back to the beetles and the ladybirds that we did before, and it's just this sort of V shape or mountain shape, whatever you want to call it. That is all we need to do. So with our little guy at the top here, now remember spiders have 8 legs, and even if your drawing is not 100% accurate or you're going for a more fun style, if you give this creature 8 legs, people are going to recognise the fact that it is a spider. Now it can be quite difficult to squeeze in 4 legs each side. Use up the whole area of the sides of your oval. So don't try and cram all your legs in here like this, because that's just going to get messy. You want to be able to spread them out, and the legs at the front are usually a little bit shorter in some of the species. So if you have your first one down here, so there's your V shape, and then you can have one here and one here and then one at the back. It makes much more sense. It's much more proportionate to what you're doing, because this reminds me more of like a flea or a tick or something. And that rule goes for all of your spiders. It doesn't matter what body shape you use. So if we take the longer, skinnier one here, and you do the same, obviously you have more room on a shape like this, but you have got that whole side to play with. Now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, that's far too long and skinny for a spider. That's not spider shaped. I am not happy with this. So I'm just going to take my eraser And I'm going to rub out those legs for a start. I can still see them very faintly on the paper, and that's going to help me gauge how much I need to shorten the body by. So I'm going to rub out this bottom part and go back and grab my pencil, and I think I want it to end roughly where I had that bottom set of legs. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work on this shape a little bit and make it a bit more smooth and a bit more rounded. And then I can erase anything that's gone astray. That looks a bit better to me. Now when I pop my legs in, and again I'm just using that little mountain shape or upside down V, and then he's got his little legs at the front. So there's still plenty of space between all the legs, but he's just a little bit sort of shorter and plumper, and that's sitting much better with me. I like that a lot. With this one here, if we take away the web that he's hanging down on, is that what they call it? Web? Silk, the silk that he's hanging down on. And maybe he's you know, he's sitting on something, he's on the ground. So there's going to be an overlap in the legs because we are looking at him square on. You're not going to see every single leg the same way as you do up here, because obviously this is, instead of being looking at it square on, it's slightly tilted, so you will see everything that runs down the side. So what we want to do is think about how many legs that we want to be able to see, but part of that is about how aesthetically pleasing it is just to look at. So if I pop a big leg in at the back here, either side, like so, that anchors him to whatever surface it is he is supposed to be standing on. So it's important that you do that on both sides, because that gives you a good gauge of how many other legs you're going to put in as well. So if I stick in a second one slightly further forward like this, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I don't really want any round here because that would be the front of his body. So I can stick one in there, that's fine. And if there's a little bit of an overlap in some of them, it doesn't matter. It really, really doesn't matter. And maybe I'll bring one just slightly further forward here. There we go. So that's a little bit more towards the front. Okay, you telling me that doesn't look like a spider? Of course it looks like a spider. And lastly for this one down here, this is our slightly more realistic effort. And this, just because you have the two sections rather than just one, that's really the only difference. You're not doing anything different with these legs. And I think having the head is a really good idea because it lets you place the legs a bit better. And I always put the front legs right in beside either point of the head, and I also make it a much smaller and narrower mountain shape. So rather than having a big wide angle like this, I tend to make it a lot narrower. It's like more of an acute angle, and that gives you the idea that there's the kind of shorter front legs. And it just helps to keep this nice round shape to the body as well, because you can see if I draw a line through here, the legs all don't reach the same point. The front ones are shorter, and that just helps to make it a little bit realistic. So play about with this. You know, you could even cut it off a little bit shorter than that. You could cut it off there and squash the legs up a bit more. Let's try that right now. So there's the head, and my teardrop shape's going to start in here. So I'm going to make my V, just like this, and then I'm just going to round that off more. So there we go, we've got a bit of a smaller body, and there's his head. And let's plonk some legs in. 3. Oh no, he's an insect. And then this little one at the front, much shorter, much shallower angle. There you go. So you've got, you know, you can play about with that and you can adjust that, and all that is practicing your different ovals. If you want to add a cartoon look to your spiders, you know, if you don't want something quite so serious, the easy way to make anything cartoony is to put googly eyes on it. I can't remember if I talked about this before in my last video, but googly eyes fixes everything. So even this little guy here, who's just an oval with 8 legs, you put 2 circles in there, make them quite big, and he instantly looks friendly and cute. Ta-da! It's not rocket science. If we go to this guy up here that's still got his lopsided legs, bless him, right, I think we should tidy him up because he's clearly inferior to our other spiders now. I feel kind of bad for him. So let's rub out these tick stroke flea type legs. In fact, let's fix all his legs. Let's do all of these legs. Let's give him proper legs. So I'm making the back one quite big and quite wide. And then I can tuck another one in here. Again, I'm not doing anything different here, guys. It's all the same. So there's his 3 legs, and then we'll have his little kind of smaller ones here, like that. Okay, so if you don't want to put the eyes on the body, you can stick them on top of the body. There you go, and you can even give him a smiley face. Look, he's a happy spider. So if you're looking for that slightly more whimsical or just fun style, that's a really good way to do it, is just get them googly eyes stuck on. And the other thing that you can do is we can make fuzzy spiders. Now I did that on the one in World of Flowers. So you can see this little guy here, he's all fuzzy and cute and stuff. So if we wanted to do that to this guy here, take our pencil and just using a flicky motion, think of like a pom-pom, and the hair all sort of goes out from the centre, doesn't it? So if you just work your way around and flick your pencil out and keep going, but each time work your way into the centre so that we're filling in all the white space. Obviously when you got up to his eyes, try not to go over his eyes, because if you do that then he's not going to be able to see anything, and I don't think the spider would be happy. So you would do that, and then for the legs, think of a zigzaggy motion, like, you know the way if you were going to swatch a coloured pencil, up and down, up and down, up and down. Think about that, but just with a slightly wider spacing between your lines. So rather than having them really close together, you want them to be more spaced out. And following your mountain shape, you just want to go back and forth. Now what we want to do is try and leave enough of a gap between the legs so that we can still differentiate, you know, pick out between the legs, and we can still make out the fact that he's got 8 legs, because having 8 legs is what's going to make him look like a spider. And you can do that all the way around all the legs, like this. He does look really cute already. Look at him, he's such a happy little chappy. You can just keep going with that, and then if you decide he's not fuzzy enough on the body, then you can just go back in and make him more fuzzy. And that's the wonderful thing about graphite as well, it layers just as well, as long as you're not pressing really hard, it layers just as well as any coloured pencil, with the advantage that you can rub it out. So there you go, that's how you would have a fuzzy spider. Now when it comes to inking, which I think we'll just start doing with Mr. Spider now, when it comes to inking, you don't want to take away from this fuzzy effect. So what I would do is I would line the obvious parts, so the little thread that he's hanging on, and let's ink his eyes in as well. Those little googly eyes that make everything friendly. So there's his little eyes. Oh, look at him. He's such a happy wee fellow. And what I would do is I would also ink in his smiley little face, if that's what you're putting in. When it comes to the rest of it, if you start putting in a lot of lines around the outside of him, again, thinking about the proportions you're going to be working in, it's highly unlikely that this is going to be a big drawing, so you don't want to end up with like a big inky mushy mess. So if you just sort of be selective and flick here and there, now what that's doing is it's giving you a bit of definition and rigidity to the shape of him, but you're not taking away from that nice soft fuzzy pencil that's underneath. And it's the same with his legs. See, just a little flick, maybe alternate one up, one down, so up, down, up, down, up, down, just over the top of your graphite. It means you're keeping that softness, but it's not going to look out of place, because obviously the rest of the drawing is in ink, because you're doing it in a colouring book. So you can just do that. You don't even have to do the legs, it's up to you, but that's just an idea to, you know, to get you started. And you can see he looks pretty good, but he doesn't look unfinished. All that I would say about that is you have to be careful when you go back to sort of tidy up your lines. Like, see around his eyes, you can still see the graphite, which I want to get rid of, but I've got to be very careful that I don't get rid of any of these fuzzy bits that are a bit lower down. So just take your time and be very careful. The little Tombow mono erasers, you know, the tiny little ones, are really good for that as well, like this. And you can just click that out and that will give you like a lot of precision for getting in around his little googly eyes. So there you go. And inking with the other ones is just exactly the same as we did before. So let's try one of the more realistic ones. Let's do this guy down here. Now remember what I said, you want to go in as many long smooth motions as you can, which is easier said than done with circular shapes, and it does take practice. My hand isn't too shaky today, so this should be all right, but just take in as much in one go as you can. So there we go, that's the sort of main part of the body, and then I can hopefully get his head done in one as well. Now the trick to get a nice smooth line when you're inking is to not press too hard and leave your hand free. Don't try and anchor like your fist down onto the table, because it's not going to help you. You need to be able to move smoothly, and you can't do that if you're pinning your hand down. Now the legs are nice and easy because you can do that in 2 strokes because there's an angle there. So you can go up and stop and then down and stop. You don't have to do them all in one like this, but if you want to, or you're comfortable doing that, then that's great. But I find you get a better angle, you know, if you want it to be quite sharp, you're actually better breaking it up and lifting the pen in between your strokes. Now that's just down to preference and style. That's, you know, there's nothing particularly technical about that, so we'll leave that to dry just for a little second. So you can see there's some of our spiders, and I don't care what you all say, it looks fabulous. Okay, so I'm just going to erase away, and as you guys know, this is like my favourite part. When you take away your pencil lines from underneath, you're left with this really nice definitive image, and it's there and you did it, and it's permanent, and it's going to be in amongst all the other beautiful work that whichever colouring book artist has done. So that's great, and that's you're ready to colour just the same as you would be in any other colouring page. Right, moving on to our next creature then. This is a bit more interesting. We're going to try a snail. Now again, there's 2 ways that you can draw a snail, or 2 ways that I would draw a snail. One is a bit more realistic and one is a bit more cartoony, and yep, you guessed it, the cartoony one's got googly eyes. See, you're learning. So when we think about the shapes that we're going to use for our snail, the first thing that springs to mind is the shell, and the easiest way to start that off is just to get a circle on the go. So get that nice smooth motion going until you get something that you're happy with, and that's absolutely fine. I'll just go with that. That's quite lucky on a on a first attempt. And then we have to think about the shape of his body. Now, if you want to keep it simple, you can have the body lying all the way on the ground. So that is going to be really long and flat oval shape, so like a sausage shape. So again, get that hand going, really get the movement going, and go as many times as you need to until you've got something that's roughly what you're looking for. And we don't want it to be too fat because it has to be in proportion with the shell. So you will see what I'm going to do with the shell right now. So let's go with that. Now the shell is joined on, and if you've ever looked at the shape of a snail shell, there is like a sort of part that joins on like this, and then it starts to spiral round, doesn't it? So I just use nice light strokes there to create a spiral, and it looks something like that. So at this top end here, this is where their sort of head is. Now if you want to make this a cartoony type snail, then you can get yourself a little set of daily boppers like this, and it's just 2 slightly curved lines, and then we want 2 little circles on the top, and there you go. You've got a googly-eyed snail. If you don't want to do it like that, I'll just draw a sausage shape again so I can show you this other one. If you don't want to do that, when you look at a snail, they've kind of got, it's like little feelers, it's not actually eyes, but they sort of come up the same sort of shape. So if you draw 2 little circles, so smaller than what you would for googly eyes, so say you do them about this size, and again that's just practice your little circle, and then they just kind of like join on, and these are the bits that move about, and you know, they're the little feelers that they sort of search around with, because they don't really do anything else. So that's really what you're going for, and you can move these about. So again, let's just do another quick sausage shape here. You can have them quite close together, so if you wanted to start with the stalk type part, you could do that and then put your little knobbly bit on the end. So you could have them really close, like side by side like this, and you can see that these ones are really far apart. Totally up to you, but it just makes your snail a bit more realistic looking rather than, you know, the sort of googly eye thing. Anyway, let's go back up to this chap here. So when I'm talking about proportions, his shell looks far too small for his body. He's really long, but he might be spread out, who knows? But to me, it just doesn't look right. Rather than trying to change the size of the shell, I would change the size of the snail. So I'm going to stop him about there. And all I've done is a curved line there, and it's nothing drastic. And I'm just going to bring him along up to the front. And I think you'll agree that it makes his shell look much more in proportion to the rest of him. The other option for this body shape part, so let's do another one down here. If we draw another circle for our shell, it's our starting point for our shell. And then we think about our sausage shape. If you want them to be a little bit more sort of upright, shall we say, you can draw a small sausage shape on the bottom, like a short one. When I say short, I mean from here to here, not this way. And then you can draw another sausage shape coming up the way, like this. Okay, so this is going to be his head. So then that lets you join your shell on, like you did before, so just a little sort of slightly curved line. And then you can start bringing your swirl round. You can leave this part till the end, it doesn't matter. There we go. And with this top part, you can then stick his dealy boppers or his feelers or whatever you decide you want it to be on here. I just love that. Now what we want to try and do is smooth this shape out a bit, because he's very unlikely to have this sort of harsh angle. So on this side, we just want to smooth that out like this. He's quite smooth on the bottom. And that's the line, that darker line that you can see, that's the one you're going to go over in ink, because we don't want any harsh angles, because the snails, they just don't have them. So there you go. If you want to go a step further, let's carry on with this guy here. Snails and slugs are quite slimy, and you can put a little trail of slime behind them, and all that is a wavy line that's going to come away at an angle, because that helps you show the path in which he has come. So if I start like an S shape and just work my way along that line, then you have the ground. Okay, obviously he's on the ground, so let's put the ground in, and you can just have that disappearing off somewhere like this. And you can make this part as thick or as thin as you want. You know, you could have it shorter than that, and that lets you put a nice slimy trail behind them if you're feeling that way inclined. Now obviously if you want to draw a slug, well, got a slug there, haven't we? But the same principle applies, it's just minus the shell. So that is two beasties in one. When it comes to inking, just make sure that you're very careful and that you have erased enough lines in terms of your shell and things so that you don't pick the wrong lines. So I would like to tidy this up so that I don't make any mistakes. So I'm just going to take away all my construction lines that I don't need in his shell. Now down here at the bottom, it's up to you. I kind of like to leave a little bit like there, just to, I don't know, it kind of helps with the swirly shape. So then you can just get down to business, and I'm going to use a thicker fine liner for this. I do like a really skinny fine liner. This is the 005, which is a 0.2mm line width. That generally, you won't see that size of line width in most colouring books. They tend to be slightly thicker than that, but for my own personal art, I tend to use really skinny fine liners. I'm just having a wee gander over here at my tub of fine liners. There's a 0.5. Okay, so this is a 0.45 line width, and you can see it's considerably thicker than it's like non-existent. It's considerably thicker than the one I was using. And there's no right or wrong place to start when you're inking stuff. I would say start where you're comfortable, personally. But try and just keep that nice smooth motion as much as you can. Now you're going to hit a kind of moot point with that here, but that's okay. And then you can work on your body. I say make sure you're absolutely happy with your sketch lines, with your construction lines before you start inking. You don't want to be playing a guessing game when you're trying to ink. You know, you have to be absolutely sure those are the ones that you want, because then you're less likely to make any mistakes. I'm going to make him slightly cross-eyed just for fun. And again, if you're feeling playful, yay, look how cute does he look. And let's do his slime as well. Let's just make him a happy, slimy little chappy. I have to say these fine liners aren't great on this paper, but this is really cheap paper. I'm just going to put the ground in, but I feel as if you should have some ground at the front here as well. And then I can start erasing. See, this is where the magic happens. This is my favourite part. And you can just take away all of that graphite really gently, and look, there you go, you've got your little snail and he's ready to go. It's so lovely. There's two little simple ones that I wanted to show you. I didn't know whether I was going to stick them in the same video, but I am going to do it right now. And that is worms and caterpillars. So these are really simple. Caterpillars, oh my goodness. Let's just get your circle on. Let's do as many circles as you want. Obviously practicing your consistency of size and shape is really important here. So this is actually a really good exercise. Give them little antennae if that's what you want. Oh look, you've got a caterpillar. Give him legs. And you've got a centipede. Can you see where I'm going with this? And these legs are exactly the same as the other insect legs that we've been doing. And you can just add them on. You can even do the ones at the back if you want, but I think that's going to get a bit messy. So yeah, that is your centipede or your caterpillar. That's not a problem. Doing a worm, if you think about your oval shapes that we did earlier, we want really skinny sausage shapes. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can just draw a wiggly line. Like, that's absolutely it. And you can put little curves on either end, like so. And then you can just join them up. Now the only thing that makes this difficult is trying to maintain the same width between the two lines all the way along, and I find that easier to use little short sketchy lines like this rather than trying to like draw the same line twice, because that never works for me. Some people can do it, I am not one of those people. But there you go, that's a relatively consistent thickness all the way along. Now for the body, worms have got segments, and all I'm doing is using this sort of backward C shape, or you can do it, it doesn't matter which direction you do it in. And all I'm going to do is do that little C shape, and again I'm going to try and keep them relatively equidistant from each other the whole way along. But by making them slightly curved, that's what makes it look worm shaped. You know, it makes that curvature quite obvious. And obviously the more that you bend the curve, the more bent and bendy is going to look. So if you wanted a really, really curvy curve like that, you would leave a bigger space because there would be a bigger bend, if you know what I mean. But that's really, you know, nitpicky. If you just pop those in all the way along and then maybe leave a bit more space at one end, there you go, you've got yourself a worm. I told you. See this drawing malarkey? It's really easy. Okay, and for our final little creature that I wanted to show you, we are going to talk about bumblebees. Now, bumblebees are, I would say that I find them a bit more difficult because I never really know what looks right. So the first thing that I wanted to do was just to do a kind of side-on effort like this. And they have quite small wings. But that's it, you know. Okay, there's no denying that that looks like a bumblebee because he's got stripes on, but you have the option to do a slightly fuzzier version as well. I suggest doing the fuzziness with your pencil on your colouring book and not inking that outside line, but that's absolutely up to you. And if you wanted to do it, then you would just use the same method that we did over here with Mr. Spider. There's no difference. So the things you've got to remember about bumblebees is, first of all, you want an oval shape. I like quite a fat bumblebee because I think they are. And you want another oval shape, but in the opposite orientation. So you want it slightly, not straight up and down, you want it slightly offset like this. And their wings are quite small in comparison to the likes of a butterfly or a dragonfly in relation to their body. So that's just the teardrop shape. So you can do your V shape and bring it up and round. And then you can add in the same again. I like to kind of bunch them together as well, but it's up to you. You can mess about with that. If you're not happy with that, just get it erased and you can try again. Maybe have them at a slightly more of an angle. So that's exactly the same as the wings we did last time. And then using that C shape that we've just used for the earthworm, you can put in your stripes. And when we're doing the legs, again, the legs are exactly the same. You want this sort of slightly mountain shape, and don't put them underneath because they're attached to the side of the body. So you want them above the bottom part of the oval for the body that you've drawn. And it's just the same as before, and you want 3 sets like this. So that's that side, and then you can pop the ones in at the other side if you like. And that's pretty much it really. There's your little bumblebee. That's pretty good going. If you want to do a bumblebee face on, which is quite nice for a change, then we're just doing circles. So you want your circle for the head like this. And then you want your circle for the body. So it should be bigger, obviously, than your circle for the head. And again, you can keep going round and round until you get a shape or a size that you're happy with. I'm just going to take this corner off because that's a bit excessive. And yeah, and then you can pop your wings in, and the wings are still going to be, oh, they're way too big. Whoa, come on, Jim. Not all perfect, you see. So you want that same shape in, like this, so your teardrop shape. And what I like to do when they are, when I'm doing them face on, I like to have that fuzziness in because I just think it makes them look more like a bumblebee because you can't really see their stripes. So I would do that on the outside and then maybe have a little bit of yellow. But the other thing I like to do is I like to give them eyes, which is just like a little semicircle on either side like this. And try and match them up as best you can. It's not always the easiest thing to do. And also you can give them dealy boppers if that's what you want. That's really straightforward. I mean, there's nothing hard about that. But there you go, you've got a bumblebee from the front. And again, if you want to stick a couple of legs in, you know, just little legs, then there's nothing stopping you doing that either. So you have so many options, but I'm just trying to give you the sort of simpler ones. If I was putting something into a colouring book, I would probably opt for this because it's nice and simple and straightforward. But if I wanted that fuzziness, I would just do it with pencil over the top. So obviously I've already got my spider friend, he's already in and he's lovely and fuzzy. So we want to find somewhere to put our snail, and I think he is going to go up here. So when you actually come to do this in your colouring book, once you've practiced, this is where you have to pay attention to the proportions. Obviously you're not going to have a snail that's like this big on there because then he would be gigantic, and that's just not going to fit in with the piece at all. So that's exactly what you don't want to do. So you have to have a look at your surroundings a little bit and decide, you know, does it fit in with what's going on round about. So I'm going to have him kind of sloping down this petal here. So I'm going to pop his shell in first. So there's my circle for his shell. Now this is back to what I was talking about earlier about the size that you're actually going to draw things. This is quite small. And then I'm going to put my 2 sausage shapes in because I want his head to be lifted slightly. So there's my first sausage shape. And then my second sausage shape. And then I'm going to start to work on his shell. So there's my joining line that joins the shell to his body. And that's just going to come up and round. And there's my little curvature in there, which is nice. And then I'm going to work on his body here. Make sure that that's smoothed off as well. Remember, no right angles. And give him his dealy boppers. Now, I'm not really happy with how curved that is there. That's better. There we go. So now we want to get some ink on him. So I'm going to go back to my skinny fine liner because he is quite small and he's in quite a tight space. And I'm just going to start with that shell. And then I think I'll go body. Missed a line there. And then pop in his dealy boppers. I'm not going to give him googly eyes though, I'm just going to leave him like that. And I'll give that a waft a little minute. So let's think about where we can put our our little wormy friend. I was kind of looking for somewhere where there's a lot of space on a leaf, but where the leaves are all quite patterned, so that's not very helpful. So let's go for a caterpillar, and he can be traversing this gap. So we'll start our circles here, and then I'll start building them up the way, because we all know how caterpillars walk, don't we? They don't really walk, they don't have any legs, you know what I mean, how they travel. Stop splitting hairs. There we go. So I'm going to give him 2 little daily boppers as well. Look at that! Look, he's making his way across the leaf, petal even. So when you are inking this, I always like to start at the head, and I always put the circle for the head in first, and I'm actually going to cut off part of the circle because it's slightly in behind. Now you don't have to do this, but it's just something. You're actually almost drawing the full circle, but you just not quite. Oh, that one's a bit off. The trick is with these is not to be scared and not to be hesitant, because if you're not confident, it will show in your ink lines. You have to be absolutely sure, and that's why it's really, really important that you are 100% happy with your pencil before you go anywhere near it with ink. I'm coming back up to my little snail friend up here, and it's just because I want to rub out his pencil lines. I don't know why I couldn't talk and rub at the same time there. I don't know what that was all about. Okay, and lastly, I just want to stick in a little bumblebee friend. So I think he's going to go in the gap between our dragonfly and our butterfly. And I'm going to pop him in right here, and he's going to be fat. So I'm making him quite, helps if you can see what I'm doing. I want him quite deep from here to here, because I want him to be fit. And then I'm going to pop in his head, so it's that little oval at a slightly jaunty angle, like this way, rather than straight up and down. And it's significantly smaller than his body, and what that does is that lets you see that he is fat. Oh dear. And let's pop some little wings on him. So I'm going to have one coming out here, I think, and one coming out there. And I'm going to get his stripes in. So we've got lots of body to put stripes on here, which is funny, because he's a big boy. And then I'm going to pop in some legs. Oh, I've got a super fat bumblebee, that makes me so happy. I think his head is slightly disproportionate. I think we're going to have to give him a slightly bigger head. And slightly bigger wings, because I don't think those wings are going to support the weight of this big boy. I've also decided as well, his wings look like a bow. I'm going to have them going in the same direction, a bit like I have with my my dragonfly just above. So I'm changing the angle. That's really annoying, the camera keeps doing that. I'm changing the angle just so that they're a bit closer together, because they were a little bit far apart there for my liking. Okay, and then I'm going to pop in some little antenna like this. Let's get inking. He's so cute and fat, don't you just want to cuddle him? Alright, I'm going to start with these wings. Now see, I chose an interesting point there to start my curve, because the fullness of the oval is cut off by that leg. That's a great place to start and stop. And it's the same round here as well. I can stop at the antenna because it breaks up that outline of the circle. So if you're not entirely confident with your lines, look for things like that, and that will really help you until you get to the point where you're confident going all the way around. Obviously, if you want to go all the way around, then by all means feel free, but if you're not, that just gives you options. I'll pop his legs in now. See this one at the front, and maybe a bit of one there and a bit of one there, and then I can pop in his stripes. All these stripes, look at him, he's so adorable. And I'm just going to pop in those little action lines that we talked about in the last video as well, because he is flying. Now you may prefer a slightly more slimline bumblebee than that, but that's absolutely okay. Tell you what, let's give him a body. Let's give him a skinnier body. How's that? We'll give him a baby bumblebee. Let's see how small we can go. You're maybe not going to be able to see his stripes too well, but I'm going to try. Oh yeah, there we go, look. Okay, skinny fine liner for this one. So that's something that you can affect and manipulate, is the fatness of something, and you can do that by the, you know, the proportions of the circles that you're using. Obviously this little guy's body is quite a similar size to his head, so that would indicate that he's not a fatty. I'm gonna get these stripes in. There you go. Still room for stripes even though he's really small. And get some legs in. Oh, he's so cute. And give him his little daily boppers. Maybe even colour his head in. Colour some of them stripes in. There you go. And you can use the dotted flight path as well. Again, we talked about this before. Let's see, wee, he's been all the way around here. Wee. There you go. Now we'll just get an eraser and we shall rub out all of these lines. So there you go, we have some more creepy crawly friends for you to try and draw. I hope you have maybe learned something from this, or you have at least enjoyed watching. You can always let me know in the comments, and if there's any other things that you would like me to show you how to draw in a simple manner, I'm all open for suggestions, and just you leave them down there in that comment section. Anyway guys, that's us, we are all done for today. These are ready to colour, so I think I might go and get my coloured pencils out and have a little go now, because I've got these other ones to colour too. And we shall see you next time in the cave. Have a good day everyone. Bye for now.